Happy fall, everyone. This is Ricardo, and here's what you can listen to in the Popping Collars feed in September 2021 while sipping on your favorite pumpkin-flavored beverage. Popping Collars goes back to school this month with an episode devoted to the trials and tribulations of teenage life in pop culture. Everybody's favorite part conversation, part competition show is back this month as we create our favorite canon from the works of Whoopi Goldberg. Betsy and Greg talk about the movie Postcards from the Edge on this month's Going on 30. Join them for a hilarious and heartwarming conversation about Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds. Finally, special guest Stephen McHale breaks down the best tracks on the classic Beatles album Revolver. Thanks for listening, and keep those collars popped.
Hi, I'm Greg.
And this is Betsy.
And this is Going on 30, a Popping Collars side project where we're still here. I don't know if I can sing that song.
Where's your red dress, Greg? Come on, bang that piano top.
With movies that were nominated or should have been nominated for Best Picture 30 years ago this month, we're looking at Postcards from the Edge.
Help me.
Just came by to say hi and make sure that everything's up to snuff. And we're going to need a drug screen.
Excuse me?
It's a formality of the business.
So do you want blood or urine?
I think urine would be fine. And we'll see you outside, okay? Have fun.
Thanks. Hello, dear. Hi, Mama.
No, you see, she's exactly like me when I was her age.
What I'm doing, I feel like I belong.
Film after film. I
feel
never stopped
necessary.
working.
I know how
and
to
it was
do
very,
that.
very good therapy for me after my divorce and my miscarriages.
Good times and bum times, I've seen them all in my dear.
Ever since I was about 7, I wanted to be you. Bart does you in his drag show.
I am still here.
How would you like to have Joan Crawford for a mother?
Oh,
or Lana
please.
Turner?
These are the options.
Said bellhop, my people plays guitar.
Are you sure I didn't sleep with you?
Sleep? Yeah.
I was with him Saturday night. That's 2 girls in one day. Yeah, that's just the ones we know about. You said you loved me.
I admitted at the time.
Well, what is it, a viral love? Kind of a 24-hour thing?
Never let him see you ache. That's what Mr. Mayor used to say. Or was it ass? Never let him see your ass.
You know, you were a lot more fun when you were loaded. No!
Relax, they're blank.
I don't get your generation's humor half the time.
Remember my 17th birthday party when you lifted your skirt up in front of all those
I
people,
did not lift
including
my
that guy
skirt.
Michael?
It twirled up.
And you weren't wearing any underwear.
Well,
Meryl Streep, Shirley MacLaine, in a Mike Nichols film.
Oh, Lowell, I'm sorry.
Postcards from the Edge.
Help me.
Betsy, I have a not so brief description of this movie.
Why is it not so brief? What happened?
I don't know. These things vary from time to time.
This would be a hard, I don't know. I feel like I could. Okay, let's see what you got.
I get the descriptions from a website called Letterboxd, which is a really good sort of site for like film enthusiasts. And typically they keep their descriptions brief, but this one, not so brief.
Not so brief. Okay.
Substance addicted Hollywood actress Suzanne Vale is on the skids. After a spell at a detox center, her film company insists as the condition of continuing to employ her that she live with her mother, herself once a star and now a champion drinker. Such a setup is bad news for Suzanne, who has struggled for years to get out of her mother's shadow and who still treats her like a child. Despite these and other problems, Suzanne begins to see the funny side of her situation and also realizes not only do daughters have mothers, mothers do too.
Oh, I'm sorry. I fell asleep during that synopsis. It was so long. Okay.
In conclusion.
And you use the word rehab when clearly in this film it is a drug clinic.
Oh.
Throughout the film. I thought that was so weird. Drug clinic.
There you go. Betsy, what is your history?
I did not see this in the theater. I believe this again was a TNT, TBS, AMC, some sort of finding it home. This might have been my first exposure to Streep, potentially. Oh. When I rewatched it, it didn't feel like I'm watching a Meryl Streep movie. Like that wasn't what it felt like. I felt like I was watching something. I was having kind of a watch memory of some kind. And I love myself some Shirley MacLaine. I would have been a big Steel Magnolias fan leading into this, which was the year before. What about you?
I have no history with this movie. The first time I saw this movie was a week ago for this here project.
Yes.
So not only do I not have a history with the movie, I have no frame of reference for this movie. Like this movie just doesn't exist in my world.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I think too, like it's the coming back to it later after appreciating the books and writings of Carrie Fisher to kind of come back to this story and script again. Is this a comedy? Is it a drama? It's both. You know, there's, right. Yeah. So Carrie Fisher herself living life as a dramedy, it's her personality as a writer and coming back and appreciating this when it came out, even though it had some heavy saxophone, which definitely tells you what time period it's from, it almost feels like it could be told in another time.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be where it is, despite the presence of hair and saxophone. There was a lot of hair in this. There's a lot of mullets in this. There's just a lot. Men, women, everyone. It was a lot.
Dennis Quaid. A lot of no shirt. He's a lot in this movie. Let's get into the hot takes about this movie. What are your hot takes on this?
It was realizing how what was real was up for grabs. They do such a nice job with the opener, you know, and you're watching, you're like, is this a movie? Is it not a movie? What's happening? And then you slowly realize that it's a movie, and you realize that that's really true throughout her life. Suzanne's upbringing, like what's real, who's being real, who's doing something. Is my mom actually talking to me, or is she playing a character? You know, when you're in a room full of people, is this for me or for someone else? That ability for her mother to turn everything back around to be something about her.
Right.
I think as a mom, that's my deep fear that I do that. It's that element of then, how am I going to ground myself in a world that feels so unreal?
Yeah.
You know, so I'm going to look for that in relationships. And so she wants authenticity. She doesn't want to rush into things now. You know, she's trying to make better choices. I'm going to ground myself in maybe the use of substances and things like that to try to stabilize my mood and figure out what's going on while detaching from what's going on. I think for me, it's the mother-daughter relationship. And it's this idea of what's real if you've grown up in Hollywood.
Oh my gosh. That's gotta be so hard. Like, I think to myself, is Drew Barrymore the way that she is because that's who she is, or because that's how she grew up? Like everything just feels a little much, you know, sometimes like performative, I guess. Like life feels performative. I don't know. You know, Carrie Fisher, when we look at this, she seems like in her private life, she seems just like such a total, like sarcastic, you know, fun hang, like the person who's been to the puppet show and has seen the strings, and she's like, okay, yeah.
She's the writer of this.
Yeah.
She's writing about a mother-daughter relationship, both in entertainment. She steals from her own life.
Right.
This is not an autobiography. And she very much, in all the press that you read around this movie, is having to say, this is not me.
Right.
This is not my mom. There are elements of our relationship and elements and stories from my own addiction. I can imagine a party and everyone's like, oh, Debbie, sing, you know, and Debbie Reynolds, you know, doing one of her numbers.
Well, that was actually one of my questions is it more of a peek into Carrie Fisher or Debbie Reynolds? Especially the way that the movie unfolds. And I should say one of my hot takes is this is the Mike Nichols movie that I was hoping Working Girl would be. You know, something that is fun, but still has a lot of substance for actors to chew on. And oh my gosh. I mean, speaking of actors, geez, like this cast, man. Holy cow.
This is one of the things I love about this project that we're doing is seeing just people pop up.
Oh my gosh.
And, you know, there's Oliver Platt. He's got 5 lines. See you later.
Exactly. I mean, the Gene Hackman thing, I was like kind of prepared for. The Richard Dreyfuss thing, I was not prepared for at all. And it was like, oh my gosh, Richard Dreyfuss is in this movie.
yeah.
Like, anyway.
Annette Bening.
Exactly. You know?
And that question about the peak behind things, right? I think it is also a peak behind Hollywood because you're looking at 2 careers that have spanned, you know, from the infancy of the Hollywood system and the studio system and the stories her mom tells about Zanuck and Mayer. And, you know, and they took that song from that Broadway song, I'm Still Here, that's from Follies. They rewrote some of the lyrics for the movie so that it was contextual to her experience. And then you put Meryl Streep's character, Suzanne, walking around on these Hollywood sets and, well, we're going to drug test you and how small the trailers are. And it's all this behind the scenes. There's the craft services. And, you know, and she's there as a cop having a conversation with Annette Bening, who's playing a sex worker, and they're both in costume. And it's just, and she sidles up to her like she's an officer.
Right.
It's just the way they play with what's behind the scenes, what's acting, what's real.
What's real?
I did not
culminating with an ADR scene that is one of the most revealing things as you're covering up the film version of that. You know, it's oh my gosh.
Oh, excuse me. Suzanne, this is our editor, Phil Hartley, and our sound editor, Elliot Morris.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Hi, Gil. Shall we begin?
Yeah. Could I have some Coca-Cola, please?
Phil, could you get Suzanne a Coke, please?
Yeah, sure.
You're much better in the film than you deserve to be.
Good. I mean, thank you. I'm sorry I was such a nightmare.
Well, you seem better now.
Really? No, I don't.
Yeah, better because you're sober and...
Worse because I'm sober.
Yes, but worse in a good way.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Because we have more spirit and more resources than you. All it'll cost us is money. There isn't enough mommy in the world to further a cause like yours.
That's as good as it got all day. We never got a full take after that.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry, just fix it.
I mean, this is what I'm saying. This is the Mike Nichols that I was hoping to get.
Yes.
Like
and
a Mike Nichols that pays attention to the details.
He and Streep, you know, they are a dynamic duo.
Yeah.
You know, looked up stuff on them. You know, she said he just created a world that you wanted to go to every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love also, you know, when she sings I'm Still Here, you know, what is it that Suzanne sings before that is You Don't Know Me.
You don't know me.
It's just so good. It's so good.
Yes. But like tone deaf to one another, you know. Yeah.
Exactly.
Suzanne actually hasn't gotten to have any of her own problems. And we still don't even really hear, but there's a reference to Suzanne's adolescence, but it's never really explored in any way.
Speaking of, you know, being on the set of, you know, the movie that she's filming and stuff like that. Betsy, I've got a top 5.
Oh, out of nowhere. Okay.
I was trying to sneak it in.
Okay, well, what is it?
I've got top 5 movies about making movies.
Okay, all right. That's fair. That's fair. Honorable mentions?
I do have an honorable mention because it's a terrible movie.
Oh.
That's the only reason that it's
because it's a movie about movies that's bad.
Well, but it's also not about making a movie. Anyway, it's Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is like
I'm going to have to take your word on that one. I'm going to have to take your word because I don't know.
It's a meta commentary on horror movies. It's kind of like his prototype script for Scream, where everything that he was writing as himself, Wes Craven, was actually coming true in the life of the character who plays his lead role. Anyway, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. Kind of a movie about movies. Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. All right, let's move on. Number 5.
Number 5, Hail Caesar from the Coen brothers.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
I like that movie. The more I watch it, the more layers, like onions, it seems like are revealed.
Okay, number 4.
Number 4, different kind of movie making, Boogie Nights. Nights. Movies about making movies.
Movies about making some porno movies. Okay, number 3.
Number 3, we go from Mike Nichols to Robert Altman's The Player.
The Player. That's a good one.
Such a great movie.
Nice. All right, number 2.
Number 2, I would get kicked off of the podcast if I didn't mention it, by Ricardo. 8.5. 8.5.
Oh.
Great movie about making movies.
Yes, that's good. All right, number 1.
Okay, number 1, in honor of the movie that we're talking about today, the number 1 movie about making movies is Singing in the Rain.
No.
Debbie Reynolds.
Nice.
What's your best scene from Postcards from the Edge?
As much as I could watch Shirley MacLaine sing that song, I really love the staircase scene. And she just really says, I can't possibly compete with you because what if one of us won?
Right.
And it's Shirley MacLaine's case, Doris, talking about her own drinking and all of that. And Suzanne has, I believe at that point, she's taken the pill out of the cabinets in her pocket and she's supposed to go do that looping. And you feel like it's all kind of falling apart. And it's another one of those moments that's leading into a moment of kind of falling apart so it can actually come together.
That's a great one. And and it's that unraveling so that when they do get into the hospital scene later on, real healing can start to happen there. But you have to do the unraveling first. Yeah. Totally.
What about you?
I've got 3.
I have 3. Okay. I had to pick.
One of them was the You Don't Know Me. So we've already talked about that. So I'll leave it alone. But come on, the Nancy Reagan dream sequence.
That was so freaky.
Oh my God, that's so good.
It's so good. All the pictures on the wall.
That scene's so good. But probably my best scene is the meeting with Marty.
Your Uncle Marty here talked to the insurance company early this morning, and they said they'd cover you if you would stay with what they call a responsible party for the run of the film.
A responsible? So what am I supposed to do? Go to a halfway house for wayward SAG members or something?
Honey, if you calm down a little bit, you see it's not that bad. What they said was they'd cover you if you stay with one or both your parents. What can I tell you? I told them your father lives in New York, so what about Doris here?
Excuse me?
Well, she couldn't stay with her father anyway. He's worse than she is. Not that you're bad, dear.
Stay with my mother? What am I, a teenager?
I lived with my mother and father until I was 23 years old. We all shared the same bathroom.
Doris, please. Thank you. Susie, maybe it would be better to wait a couple of months to go back to work. Go to your AA meetings, and when you're feeling better, what can I tell you?
This film, I can go to meetings and work. I do better when I work.
No, you see, she's exactly like me when I was her age.
What I'm doing, I feel like I belong.
Film after film. I never stopped working.
I know how to do that.
And it was very good therapy for me after my divorce and my miscarriages. Of course, in those days, the material was a lot better.
Doris, so baby, you got it right. These are the conditions for doing this film. For the run of the film, you stay with your mother.
Great. Okay, I'll stay with her. You
know what they say.
Great, fine.
No pain, no gain.
Well, no wonder I'm so hefty.
Hefty? Dear, if anything, you are too thin. Now my stomach,
Mother,
that's hefty.
I was kidding.
I don't get your generation's humor half the time.
I don't have a generation.
Then I think you should get one.
And the reason why this scene stands out to me is just the exchange between Meryl Streep and Shirley MacLaine. If you are an actor, if you are a burgeoning young actor who wants to make it in Hollywood, just watch that scene on a loop over and over again. And then just do that whenever you audition for parts. This is just so good. They're just so good. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the scene briefly that I would, if I was, cheating like you and naming multiple scenes, I would go with the hospital scene with Shirley MacLaine in the hospital after running her car into a tree. And just the doing her makeup, like there's this vulnerability to her, but still the facade is there.
Yeah.
How are my eyebrows? Ever since the studio shaved them off, they never grew back. And just the way the talking to one another and just trying to get her ready to walk out of that hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And you would think, oh, well, it's all about facade and covering up and all that stuff. But they were actually more real with each other in that moment.
Exactly.
Than they have been the whole rest of the film.
And I mean, that's, again, it gets back to the filmmaking itself. Like it's giving you two opposed images happening at the same time, but in the parts where real revelation is happening, real vulnerability is happening, one of the characters is getting false eyelashes applied to her.
Yes.
It's like, it's that tension. That is a choice, I think, by the filmmaker. And it's just a really good choice. Who is your best performance from the movie? I'm assuming you're going with one of the big two.
It's hard to pick between them.
Yeah. I know. You kind of want to take them as a combo.
Because they keep completing each other.
Yeah.
And it's this element of that, even though there's so much emotion and resentment, but there's also so much love.
So Meryl MacLaine is your choice.
Meryl MacLaine. Yeah. But it's just, there's an element too, as you said before, that this is one of those moments where Meryl Streep is just playing feels like she's in a real person.
Yeah.
And just the narcissism of Shirley MacLaine. This role is so great.
I went Hackman for this.
I knew it.
Because I'm in the bag, and we all know this. And when we get to Unforgiven, you're going to see Hackman's name come up again. It's just like, I'm in the bag for this guy. But no, it's actually because I feel like he's got two scenes, really. I mean, that's pretty much all he has. The opening scene and then the ADR scene. The trivia that I have for Hackman in this role is that he modeled his character after Richard Donner.
Interesting.
He points out the kind of the human way that Donner directs, that it's not about the art. It's about how can I form relationships with my actors to get the art that we want to create together. Let's see. I've got some stats about this movie.
Stats.
Postcards from the Edge opened on September 12th, 1990. Does that count as a summer movie? September 12th? That's after Labor Day. So
that's
I guess
after Labor Day. No, there's no white jeans, and this is not a summer movie.
Not a summer movie. It had a domestic gross of $38 million, making it the number 33 grossing movie of 1990.
Okay.
So
for an adult contemporary film,
middle of the road. It is the number 2,274th top grossing movie of all time between.
Oh, no.
Postcards from the Edge comes between a movie called Dead Again.
Oh.
That's the Kenneth Branagh movie.
Oh, with Emma Thompson.
Yeah.
And let's see. Yeah, Andy Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Robin Williams. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So it comes between Dead Again and Showtime, which is an Eddie Murphy, Robert De Niro movie from 2002, a buddy cop movie from 2002. This was the tough times of Eddie Murphy's career, this 2000s period. So Flirt, Marry, Kill, you get Dead Again, Postcards from the Edge, and Showtime.
Okay, again, Dead Again is a woman who has lost her memory, is taken in by a Los Angeles orphanage, and a private eye is enlisted to track down her identity. But he soon finds that he might have a past life connection to her that endangers their lives.
Past life, like Shirley MacLaine.
Like Shirley MacLaine. It's all connected. All right, so I'm going to kill Showtime.
Yes, yeah.
I will flirt with Dead again, and I'll marry Postcards from the Edge.
Ding, ding, ding. It's the only correct answer. It's the answer that I have as well. Postcards has an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. Good score.
Oh, okay.
Roger Ebert says, Postcards from the Edge contains too much good writing and too many good performances to be a failure, but its heart is not in the right place. 3 out of 4 stars.
What's that shade? What does that mean?
I don't know.
Its heart's not in the right place.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, honestly,
maybe Roger
I have
didn't
no
like
idea what Roger's getting.
It took him
there.
too much behind the scenes in movies, and he likes the fantasy. He doesn't want to know all the nitty gritty.
Janet Maslin, film and literary critic at the New York Times, says, as funny and well observed as the film's mother-daughter dynamics are, its baleful view of Hollywood behavior is even better.
That's better.
Yeah.
I like that.
How did it do at the Oscars? It did not win a single Oscar. No wins for Postcards, but it was nominated for 2. Betsy, what was Postcards from the Edge nominated for?
Streep?
Yes. Meryl Streep for Best Actress. Yes. Best Actress.
Screenplay?
Not screenplay. No.
Huh.
No. You're going to want to think the end credits here for this last
song.
It is. Best Original Song.
I'm checking out this Heartbreak Hotel. I ain't gonna live on Lonely Street no more. No more.
Written by Shel Silverstein. I'm checking out. Yeah, I'm checking out is a Shel Silverstein. So if you want to dig out where the sidewalk ends as you're listening to I'm checking out.
A quasi country rootin' tootin' bar situation, which she was giving me some Melissa Etheridge vibes.
Yeah. Well, it's the jean jacket. The jean jacket's what gives you the Melissa Etheridge vibes.
I think it is. But I think also there's some vocal quality there.
I guess so. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Would Bonnie Raitt have been popular at this point?
Yes,
Maybe a little
would.
Bonnie Raitt. Maybe a little Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah. Who has Dennis Quaid in one of her videos? Boom! Are you ready for a thing called love?
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
What if you had been out taking drugs or something? I'm supposed to be taking care of you now. You're my responsibility. You're my daughter. What was I supposed to think when you didn't come home? Do you mind if I have a drink?
Do you mind if I drop acid?
Dear, I drink socially.
I took acid socially.
No, I hardly think that my drinking can be compared with your drug taking. Even if it could be. I think that your involvement with drugs has vindicated me. I hardly think you're in a position to judge me.
Mom.
Let's talk about the legacy of this movie. Betsy, I wrote, and we've touched on this already, self-sabotage and the creative world. So, Carrie Fisher comes from a Hollywood family. We've seen lots of actors and actresses who grow up in the world of Hollywood who tend to struggle with addiction or just, kind of get themselves into a rebellious state that leads to sort of self-harm. Having watched this movie, do you find it hard to empathize with someone who grows up in this world?
No, I mean, all the comments about, she's spoiled and you should have done this and that and no. Everybody is trying to do their best. And if they can't see past themselves, that's going to be, I'm the person who's always like, well, let's empathize with Thanos. And why does he think destroying half the, this is a great idea, but it's like, it all comes from somewhere. I mean, that's always my empathy gym workout, right? It all comes from somewhere. So this is her particular struggle. But at the same time, I'm not stepping into like larger issues of drugs and how people of color would be treated differently than Suzanne Vale would be treated. And would she have ended up in jail versus going to a drug clinic?
Right. I mean, there's just a little bit of, I don't know. It's either jealousy or resentment, I think, about folks who grow up in what we would think of as kind of well-to-do situations. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't need to hear about your problems if you're making 6 figures a year, And that's why I think stories like this are a tough sell, like out of the box.
Oh, there's some of this Hollywood glamour that's also a part of this kind of, there's a tell-all bit to some of this.
Yeah.
That I don't know whether is it, am I watching this with sympathy or am I watching it with some rubbernecking?
Mm-hmm.
I've watched the A&E biography of Elizabeth Taylor. I know way too much about Debbie Reynolds' failed relationships and Eddie Fisher left her, or how she's had a husband who took money from her. Like I know like way too much about all of this.
Yeah.
And I think this reminded me again, when you were talking about Carrie Fisher being a good hang, that I'm like, oh, I miss these ladies and
totally.
And the reconciling place that they have come to, not that this is a biography, but that they came to in their own relationship as a mother and a daughter.
Do you think there is a link between like a creative person and this tendency towards like self-harm or self-sabotage as far as like career or addiction or something like that?
Well, and I think the other thing that Carrie Fisher couldn't go into here, because I don't know whether we were ready for that, nor had she been diagnosed yet with the mental illness that she was struggling with, that we kind of weren't at a place where we were ready to have that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I think that aspect of it is interesting. And that we're in the late, we're in the early 90s and we're looking back at 2 decades where of course you just did drugs and you did that stuff because you were successful, because that's what people did. And you looked at that wall of black and white pictures of people who have
experienced Lenny Bruce and Elvis.
Self-sabotage. And it's because they're also surrounded by people that are doing it. Like, it was interesting in the opening scene when Hackman throws that woman off the set. For a second, I thought that woman was like her stunt double because they were dressed almost exactly the same. But he's like, that you've been giving her drugs and just get the hell off my set. And that you're then surrounded by all these yes people who are going to want to make your world better and easier and supply you with drugs because you're successful. It's not that it's being done unto you. I shouldn't say that. It's not that it's like, oh, hey, you're successful. Here's your starter kit to addiction. But that you start by doing it because that's what successful people do. And then it just continues.
Yeah. I mean, clearly there's a cultural aspect to this. There's also like a work aspect, especially for actors. It's like, I got to get up. Okay, now I've got to come back down. And there's how can I do that without manipulating my body through drugs,
Yeah. And it's interesting that the word that she screws up in the loop is money, and money and mommy.
Yeah.
And that's ironic.
What's the root of her problem? Yeah. Absolutely. No, I've heard Dave Grohl talk about Kurt Cobain before. And, not that Kurt grew up in a family of, celebrities or whatever, but like, he was talking about Kurt's suicide, and he was like, he just put so much of himself and his feelings and his emotion into his song. It affected the way that he saw the world. Like it's like turning a hose on full blast, and he just couldn't control it. He couldn't get it back to just a trickle. It was just like, it was all of it. It was all of the emotion, all of the feeling just coming out until it was too much to bear. And it's what makes the songs great. And it's also what leads to his self-harm. How do you balance those things? How do you because they talk about that in this movie, right? Suzanne's not as good of an actress if she's not on the edge. So how do you balance being good at what you're doing and having all of those feelings and all of that on the edgeness, but you need to live a healthy life? Anyway, who is this movie for, Betsy?
boomers with parent issues, aging parents. No, I think
wasn't that an answer? Didn't we have that as an answer?
I think we did. I think it's people coming out of. We're merging into we're at the end of a decade. We're at the end of the 80s. It feels like it's people at the end of the 80s.
Yeah,
and they're in. You know, I love that scene where Shirley MacLaine is like, because Meryl Streep refers to herself as being in midlife. And Shirley MacLaine's like, I'm in midlife. And she's like, I don't know any 120-year-old people. And so, that midlife moment, I think there's some of that happening here. And what's happening when your original dream isn't working out the way you thought it would, and you're tied to a cactus with snakes attacking you. So it's, because this is not the highest quality film. She is taking it so she can keep working and show that she is somebody that you should bet on. Yeah. What do you do when the original plan is not working out and you're actually in your own way at the same time?
I wrote down that this movie is for film fans, people that like movies and like, watching the sort of behind the scenes of movie making, the true Hollywood story of movie making.
With that dash of knowing where the screenplay is from and all of that.
I will say, as someone who has no history with this movie up until a week ago, like it was surprisingly poignant to me with the passing of Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds.
And it was interesting, the scenes that stuck with me this time, like the looping scene that I didn't really have a strong memory of before. And was a little more into the glitz and the glamour and the movie scene and hanging off the side of the building and all of that stuff than I was into that moment of total vulnerability and just seeing your mistake giant on a screen in front of you and you're trying to fix it.
Right. And that's the line from Hackman, right? He's like, I don't care, just fix it.
Yeah. It's and I think being in midlife, it could hit me in a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your rating for this movie out of 5?
4.5.
Hey, 4.5. That makes it your number one movie of 1990. My number one movie.
Well, this was one of the ones I got to pick, right?
It is.
So, yes. We've been on a run of mine.
Yeah. So, we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
I gave it a 4. So we're in the same ballpark, which nice. I'm starting to realize that I gave like everything a 4 at this point. So.
Yes, well, that's some of why I'm like, I gotta bust out of this.
1990 was full of very good movies, I guess, in my mind. I gave it a 4. I said it's a really good movie, a much better offering from Mike Nichols than the last one that we watched, which Working Girl is still good. I like this a lot better. And the cast is just superb in this. Just great. Yeah. Great.
And those silver teardrop earrings that Meryl Streep is wearing towards the end of the film. I had a pair of sterling silver ones like that. They look just like it. I was like one of those, like, I know those might even be in my jewelry box right now because I saved some of that jewelry. Nice. You never know. Nice. It all comes back popular again.
Betsy, one last question.
Yes.
Why did you nominate this? So you nominated last month's movie, Misery, and this month's movie, Postcards from the Edge. Why Postcards?
I think because it felt like when I watched it the first time that you talk about the adult movies in your house. This felt like a movie for adults that I understood. And I also really loved movies when I was a kid. And the behind the scenes aspect of this really got me on that end. And then I was frankly really interested to revisit it, especially now that I'm a mother to a daughter as well, hoping that I'm not making everything about me and screwing it up too. That element of the movie was appealing to me. And also the aspect of loving Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds and missing, even if it's just an essence of who they are in this performance. I for all those reasons.
Yeah, 100%. I think that this movie is definitely worthy of being nominated for Best Picture. And again, just like we said with Misery last week, you could easily kick Ghost off of the list and put this movie on
every time.
you could easily kick off The Godfather Part 3 and put this movie on.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I loved it. As a first timer, I was convinced. So
Yay. That's
job.
awesome.
Good pick.
Thanks. Yay.
Betsy, we only have 2 movies.
Can't believe it.
I think it's deceptive because the movies of 1990 are very heavily skewed towards the first half of the alphabet.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't feel like we're as far along as we are because we're only in the P's, but we only have 2 movies left.
Wow. Here we
Yeah,
go.
it's
Okay,
wild.
so what's next?
So next up is a movie that we picked as a joint pick because of the footprint I think this movie leaves behind. It is Pretty Woman, Gary Marshall's entry
Pretty Woman
into 1990. We saw Penny Marshall. Now we get to see Gary Marshall's take on 1990 with Pretty Woman.
Yes.
So that will be our next movie. We will see you for Pretty Woman next month.
Bye.
Checking